Welcome to Final Expense Telesales. My name is Dana Neeson. Today I have a special guest with us. I have Nate Berrigan, who has a long history with Golden Memorial and Lincoln Heritage. And believe it or not, he still goes in the field. So I have him here today. He's going to talk to us all about the agents that still sell in the field, differences between what he has to offer compared to our competitors, and help unveil the curtain even further. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. It's nice to be on here. I'm glad to be able to do an interview with you and talk with you. You know, you've had a lot of great success. I've seen you come up in the business, and it's just astounding what you've been able to do. So I'm happy to be a part of anything that you ever do.
Thank you. And you were, I think, the very first time I was ever in a room with people outside of my little team was at Adam's office in Chowchilla for the first get together. And you were the first person, believe it or not, that kind of went out of their way, shook my hand, introduced yourself, really made me feel welcome. And that I wasn't just like this strange outsider coming in, disrupting with the telesales model. And so I don't know if I ever shared that with you, but thank you. I want you to know that that always stayed with me.
Yeah, well, it's important that anytime somebody comes on, when you think about it, the greatest resource that you have when you're working with an IMO like Golden Memorial or Lincoln Heritage is just the pool of knowledge that you have, all these different people that you have to talk to. So I always like to, introduce myself and take you around to introduce you to the other managers or the other top producers out there,
Yeah.
just so you can pick their brain, or if you ever have any questions, or just so they know. Like I said, it's the greatest resource that we have in this business are the people that are successful around us. And the more people that you have that are successful around you, the more you can talk to and learn new things and try new things and see what they're doing that's working, and change what you're doing, and try to, and also for some motivation. When you see these guys that have been around for 20 years and the type of money that they're making, I wanted you to see those type of people, and what the possibilities are in this business.
So give us an introduction. Tell us who you are, how long you've been in the business for, who your family is, the connection you have with Golden Memorial and Lincoln, and let's just hear a little bit of your story and how you came to be.
I'm Nate Berrigan, and I'm a regional manager with Golden Memorial Insurance Services. We've been working with Lincoln for maybe 38, 40 years. I got introduced into the business. Well, I guess I kind of grew up around it. I was always around it. My grandfather was in the business. He's the one that started Golden Memorial.
Mhm.
He brought my father into the business, and my aunt and my uncle. So it kind of was just, I just kind of always knew that this is what I was going to do. Even before I knew what it was, I had really no idea what they did, to be honest with you. I just knew that they were in the insurance business and that I wanted to do it. When we had career day at my high school, and everyone's getting up there and all the different professions, and the kids get up and say what they want to do, what their plans are, and I was going to be a final expense agent. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do.
So
When I was 18, I went to college, and I was studying marketing, and I wanted to become an agent. And it was, my father was like, no, you're too young. But a lot of people don't realize, but the insurance business was an old man's game, an old person's game. I mean, the average agent with Lincoln was probably in their mid 60s, right? Now it's in their mid 40s, right? But back then it used to be mid 60s. So I said, no, you're too young. How can you sit there and tell a 60-year-old man or woman what to do with their finances when you haven't even financed a car yourself? You don't know anything about money. So
Yeah.
he didn't want to let me do it. He wanted me to get a regular job, a 9 to 5, and go to school and get a degree, and then go from there. It was actually my grandfather that brought me into the business, and he was the one that sent a contract in without my dad approving it. My dad didn't want to hire me at all. He didn't want anything to do with it. And I was at the time, at 19, I was the youngest agent that got appointed with Lincoln Heritage.
I
And it
didn't.
was, yeah, it was definitely a stress. Someone beat me about like 10 years after that. They were 18 when they got appointed. But for the longest time, I was the youngest agent with Lincoln Heritage. And I would say that I started maybe in 2004, 2005. And then I was an agent working out in the field until 2012. And then I started building a group. I took a little hiatus in 2008 because I had it all figured out, and I for sure thought that I could improve on the program and make my own program, and I wanted to be a broker.
Yeah.
I heard all these things about, how you're leaving money on the food on the table, and why don't you offer this product and this product and this product and do this and Medicare, all these different things. So in 2008, I took a little break and I went and did that. And then a year later, my dad had mailed me a contract and asked me to come back, and I came back in 2009. So it was just for a year. It didn't end up working out. Actually, I didn't it didn't work being a broker. I didn't make any money, so I ended up working for Bank of America as a life insurance agent there for a bit, and then I came back. And then, yeah, in 2012, I started building an agency, and then I've been an agency owner since then.
Wow, that's quite a history. I didn't know most of that, so I'm so glad
Yeah.
you shared that. I love learning about how you grew up in the business.
Yeah, I wanted to I wanted to become the reason why in 2008 I took a hiatus was because, like I said, I knew the system better, and I wanted to have sub agents. Like that was, I just, thought that I was prepared. And being 21 at the time, I was young. Well, I don't know, maybe a little older than that. Maybe I was 23 or 24. My
Yeah.
dad had told me the same thing. No, you're too young. You don't write enough business. You need to write more business. You need to make more money. You have to be able to support your agents. And
Yeah.
I thought I could do all that. And then I told him, well, if you don't, then I'm just going to go and start my agency with, as a brokerage with a different company. And I'm going to do my own thing. He said, okay, well, go ahead, give it a shot. And that's kind of that's kind of what happened.
Those words are so wise, though, by the way. I mean, because you're just setting yourself up for debt and more debt if you aren't financially prepared to be able to tackle a downline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That wasn't even. I was so green in the business that wasn't even a consideration. It was just I just knew that I could go out and said, "What's the difference?" I'm gonna be out here every day selling policies anyway. What's the
Yeah.
difference between having someone in the car and watching me? Like I can show anybody how to do this. At the time I was a top agent, and it was a lot different back then, Dana. Like when I started, you could write 20 policies a month and be in the top 10. You wrote 25,000 AP, you were number one, and everybody treated you like a king. Now we have agents that write, $50,000 a month that are
Right.
doubling that now. And
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, do you think that's because people are working harder for it, or are they working just as hard and doubling their results? What do you think is the biggest factor behind people doing 50,000 now versus 20,000 back then?
I guess, well, with our company, it was the marketing. Back then, we didn't really have a lead program. We had like they used to call them press one leads, and it was like people that are waiting on hold for Social Security. And
Uh-huh.
while you're waiting to talk to somebody, it would say press one if you want information about insurance, press two if you want information about health insurance. So people would press one for life insurance information, and they would generate these little pink leads. They call them pink leads. And then we would go out. And on top of that, when I went into a house, we had the rate book was on a trifold brochure. So on the back had the rates, and then the front was a brochure. So that was pretty much all that I went into the house with. I would just have I would have a legal pad and
Yeah.
then a little trifold beige brochure, and that's kind of like the marketing materials that I use. So over the years, we do a lot better with the leads. The leads are more
Yeah.
qualified.
Right.
The name brand recognition is a big thing. We were so heavy on TV back then, and we mailed out so much that it became almost like a household name. So name brand recognition makes a big deal when you're trying to sell a policy. I mean, a lot of people don't. It's a lot of not even a consideration to most agents when they start, and they get
Right.
appointed to 10, 15 companies. And when you go see clients, they don't know who any of the companies are. But with Lincoln Heritage, they had just been around for so long, and you end up running into people that knew, like, oh, my aunt had this policy, my grandmother had this policy, and
Right.
it made it a lot easier to sell over the years. And so I would say the marketing materials, the training, because back then we didn't have any training either. You used to get the marketing material from the company, or the marketing material was pretty much just an application and those trifold brochures. And then that was it. They're like, okay, yeah, cool. Take some leads and go out and work. Here's a big stack of those pink leads. You're going to go buy their house. So I didn't,
I just did an interview with Damon Dillard. I don't know if you saw it or not,
yeah,
but he was talking about everything starts with the belief of whether or not, something is possible. And the minute you said, if you did 25,000, you were a top agent. Now people are writing 50, 60,000. And I've even seen people in the final expense space write 70, 80, 90,000 in a month. And it's like you almost don't know it's possible until you see people do it. And that becomes a belief for other people to be able to do it. So that's why I asked, do you think it was like more of like, well, there's no way we could write more than that until someone actually does it. But what you said actually provides some good concrete evidence. So you're still in the field.
Right.
I can't even imagine going in the field. So, and I think that a lot more people go in the field than I even realize or give credit for. So talk to me about like the pros. I want to know all the pros of being in the field and like how you connect with people on that level to go door to door and knock on people's doors. Like bring me in that psyche.
Well, I would say the main thing is first would be the personal connection, right? It's harder to you got to do a really good job, which you guys do a great job of building personal rapport on the phone, right? It's a big part of being able to
Try.
sell.
Yeah.
Yeah, to build some good rapport. So it's a lot easier. I mean, when I'll give you an example, I have an agent in Corcoran that's been there for he's been an agent for the whole time I've been here, right? Maybe 18 years. And he has that whole town on lockdown. Like everybody in that town knows who he is. They know that he sells insurance. He gets a bunch of referrals and he builds a lot of connection. I mean, these are people that you see out in your community all the time. He does events, he'll have booths on the weekend, and people just, really know and trust him to the point where if I send one of my top agents, I could send Howard Geyer out to Corcoran right now and he can run some leads and he'll run into somebody that has a policy with Vincent and says, oh no, I prefer to work with Vincent. Right. So it's
Okay.
just building personal rapport and building a lifelong career. I would say that it's a lot different doing it, face to face.
So do you think
Then,
it's more like niche related, like you want to be the face of a community versus just mass volume transactional
well,
type of
no,
stuff?
I would say it's a part of it. When it comes down to it, for me, I guess I'm all about the numbers, right? It's all about statistics. I know that if I give an agent 10 leads, right, I
Mhm.
know that six people are going to answer their door. I know that he's probably going to close half if he's a decent agent. So I know that he's going to
Okay.
get three out for every 10 leads that he takes.
So 50% conversion rate on getting into the door is what you see in just an average agent?
Well, yeah, average
That's
for sure.
huge. That's huge, by the way. And that you think that's a lot of contributing to just simply being face to face.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, it's harder. I mean, it's way easier to say no over the phone. I mean, all of us get calls all the time. I do too. I get calls
Yeah.
all the time. And
Yeah.
it's super easy to not answer or to hang up if you don't like what they're saying. At the door, I think it's a lot different. I mean, there obviously you run across people when you knock on their door that they don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to be sold on anything. And yeah, they'll close the door and say they're not interested. But I go back, I've had leads that are 4 or 5 months old that I've gone to their house. I've gone to their house a dozen times, and then eventually you go there and you make contact with them and something happened. Maybe their neighbor just got wheeled out in an ambulance the day before. And they're like, you know what? I'm so happy that you came by. Let's take care of this right now.
Yeah. True. It's so true. Those situations happen even with us over the phone because we'll continue to call the leads really until they tell us to stop calling them.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
they can,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
I guess the face to face is for me, well, I like doing that. I mean, you have to enjoy it. It's different sitting in an office setting and being
yeah,
on the dialer all
yeah,
day as opposed to driving around and going different places. I can work in uh, the cities around me, like there's Madera, Merced, Fresno, Modesto, these big cities. I can work in Merced one day and go and stop and have lunch at this nice little Mexican restaurant. I can go to Modesto the next and have some Indian food. I
yeah.
like to get around and it's kind of like almost like a quality of life issue for me more than anything working out in the field. I would say more of a more of a
We should, you know that show, House Swappers, is House
oh yeah,
Swapper, is that an old
yeah.
show? Oh my God, we should totally do that. I should go out for a day and you should do telesales for a
It's not that
day.
bad. I would say the scariest part. It's always scary for somebody when they goes out in the field when they don't know it. To be honest,
Yeah.
majority of people are nice. I mean, and it's our market too. I mean, we're working with 55 to 85 years old. They're home most of the time, and they're happy to talk about stuff. They like talking about politics. They like talking about what's going on in the community. They like talking about all kinds of stuff. I have clients that come by the office and just say hi to me. They know where I'm at. They call me and they want to just come by and see me. like I said, I see them often, especially if you've been in the business for a significant amount of time.
So, question for you on strategy. Do you call the leads first and set an appointment, or do you just show up at the house with the lead card?
I show up at the house.
Okay, now I agree with that strategy, by the way. And there's a big camp that wants to be able to call first and set appointments. So what is your logic behind just showing up instead of calling?
Based on the network, I mean, if we're talking just statistics, majority of the appointments cancel, right? If I call somebody and they say, yeah, come by tomorrow at noon, they know I'm coming by, they're not going to answer their door. If I just knock on their door, there's a higher chance of them answering their door. I mean,
Okay.
just straight down to the basics. I will schedule appointments sometimes if I feel it's an absolute necessity, but I prefer to just knock on the door. And then the second part is the quality of life. I hate having to do something the next day. I mean, not okay, not something, but I just hate having an obligation, like waking up today and being like, gosh, I have an appointment in Modesto, and then I got to drive to Hayward, and then I got to drive to Dublin for this appointment. I don't like to do that. I like to take 10 leads in Fresno or 10 leads in Modesto and just go to Modesto and knock them all out.
Hey there.
Whatever ones I don't sell, I just keep in a pile. And then the next time I go to Modesto, I pull out all those leads and I go and see them all again. So I work the same,
Like
work the same areas. And then I kind of, if something comes up, maybe I didn't know that my kid had a soccer game or whatever, there's something going on like this, like you want to do, you're like, hey, let's do a podcast, let's do a
yeah.
little interview. Then, hey, yeah, I can, my whole day's open. All I have to
Right.
do is not
I
take,
like that. I like that. You're not like handicapping yourself to a schedule that now you can't get out of. And then 50% of the time, they're not even there. So it's just a total waste of everyone's time.
big
Do
time. Yeah.
you knock to, so you get to your appointment, you're not even your appointment, your lead card. They answer, they don't answer. It doesn't matter. Are you knocking to the left, to the right, and behind
Sure.
as
Yeah,
well
I'll
as
do the whole, yeah,
neighbors?
I'll do the whole
Okay.
block.
And what do you
Yeah.
say? What is your pitch to get in?
I generate leads. So what I'll do is I have like a little interview. I don't know if you guys use it, but Adam kind of has like that little the questionnaire that people ask when they do a presentation, or he used to. I don't know if he still
Yeah,
does.
no, he sent that to me a long time ago when I first got licensed, and we don't. But there's some of the questions in
Yeah,
there.
I have like 5 questions. What I do is I knock on the door and say, "Hey, I'm Nate Berrigan. I'm with the Funeral Advantage program. One of the things that I do for my local community is I like to reach out and educate people on the importance of planning and funding their funeral in advance. If you have 2 minutes, can I do a quick interview?" And then I'll ask them a quick survey, and then I'll ask them, "Have you ever had to plan or fund a funeral before? Do you know what the average cost of the funeral is? Do you know what Social Security pays in the event of the funeral?
Mhm.
Do you have anything set aside yourself to pay for your funeral if something were to happen to you? And if something were to happen to you, who would be responsible for planning and funding your funeral?" And then after that, I just say, "Hey, I have the information. If you'd like, if you got 2 minutes, I can come in and give you the information about,
And how successful is that in you getting into just a cold door?
Um, I would say that it's like, I would say it goes by, I would say I gauge it by like how many hours you would do it, right? So
Mm,
if it takes me 30 minutes to knock on doors, I would say that, like if I did a block, right? Like I don't know how many houses, it depends on the block, right? Some blocks are bigger than the others, but I would say that I get a good amount of people that answer. Probably, I mean, you have to knock in where we get leads too, because that's our demographic, right? Like I'm not going to go
yeah.
to a place where you live and knock on doors around your community, right? I'm going to go to the middle and low income areas. I'm going to knock on those doors. That's most likely our market. Especially if I've gotten leads there, because I know that leads have been sent back in this area and they're probably in our market. Or like a mobile park, because a lot of seniors work there. If I get a lead in a mobile park, I'll knock the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I carry a lead piece with me too, and I'll be like, hey, you might have got something like this in the mail.
Mm.
I'm just here reaching out to something I do for my local community. I would say that in an hour you can probably get maybe 3 or 4 leads generated, and if I was going to just knock on doors and not even work leads, I would say I can get probably 2 deals, I'd say, in a day.
Amazing,
Yeah.
actually. So with
Yes.
leads, so if you were to go out and take 10 leads to an area in a day, first of all, do you have to take more than one day to go to all of those doors,
That
depending on
depends.
how many you get into?
If I sell a bunch, then yeah, which
Yeah.
is good, which is awesome. If I go through the leads really quickly, means I didn't sell anything, and I loop around and I go to them again. I'll go by their house is
Many times.
yeah until I'm
Do
going
you
to work
think
till I
is the
decide to
difference
stop.
between a successful agent that obviously is you and you're trying to duplicate and teach everybody how to do what you do, and an agent that has the same opportunity but is not successful? What are you noticing are the differences in?
There's only one thing, and it's always the same thing. It would be the same for your group. They're not putting in enough time. That's the only difference. The only difference between Howard Geyer, my number one agent, who will write 550,000 this year, compared to an agent that writes $1,000 a month, is that he puts in more time. That's it.
And do
That's
you
the only
believe
difference.
that the person that writes $1,000 a month admits that they don't put in the time? They,
No, and no. One of the I have like a trick. Like I have a trick, right? So if there's an agent that's not doing well, right, and they're telling me, oh, I'm doing everything that you say, I'm listening, I'm saying this at the door, I'm taking the amount of leads, I'm doing this, I'm knocking on doors, and I can't sell anything. Well, what I do is I say, okay, I can tell you exactly what you're doing wrong, right? All I need is to see a picture of their door. Text me a picture of their front door, and I'll tell you at the end of the day, by looking at all those pictures, why you didn't sell that day.
oh,
And
that's,
then what happens is it's because they're not working enough, right? So they don't want to go and send me pictures of two doors in a whole day, right? So they'll go by all the leads, they'll knock on doors, and they'll send me 20 pictures of doors, and all of a sudden they wrote two apps. I'm like, hey, guess what? You didn't do anything wrong today. You did great. You did it perfect based on what you showed me. Yep, yeah, you did awesome. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Good job.
so time. Now, time is definitely a huge problem here too, and it is absolutely a huge factor on why someone will succeed and won't succeed.
Right.
Are there any other reasons from a skills perspective? Do you see people putting in the Howard Geyer time, but don't actually have the same Howard Geyer results simply because they just can't get out of their own way and they just word salad all over the place?
Well, I mean, he's number one, so anybody that's putting in the same amount of time as him still is not selling as much as him, and that comes down to talent. Yeah, talent. I mean, it comes down to the way you look too. I mean, to be honest with you, Howard's a 55-year-old pastor, and he looks like a very professional person. He carries himself like a professional person.
Yeah.
His business card says Pastor Geyer on it. He has a lot of trust already just knocking at the door. Like when I started and I was 19 years old, it was way different for me. Nobody wants to see some 19-year-old kid. They think it's a scam, you know? They'd be like, what is this? And that's like a thing that I find, like, when we did COVID, I have a small telesales group, right? Like I have a little tiny telesales group. They work a lot different. They just take normal Lincoln leads, just like everybody else, 10 or 15, and then they call on them just like they would call just through their phone, right?
Yeah.
No headsets, no dialers, no nothing like that. They just kind of just call them, and they still, I mean, their closing ratios are lower, which is kind of why I just haven't, why I've never pushed to have a lot of my growth in telesales.
And that is true because with telesales equals volume. You can't survive off of the same volume of leads that you would purchase for the field
Right.
that you than you would with just strictly doing telesales. And so if you think about that, you almost need to buy like double or triple the amount of leads to get the same results as in the field. So from like an ROI perspective, unless you can somehow drive your lead cost down, if you're getting a really high intent lead like a Lincoln Heritage lead, you really do need to be in the field, you know, if you're buying them yourself.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in a perfect lead, you would want to have the highest I mean, the perfect world, you would want to have the highest possible contract and no lead costs. You know, that'd be awesome. Which some people do because they go out to the booths or they set up outside of grocery stores, but that takes time.
Yeah.
So anything that you're going to do to take time away from you actually being able to talk to a client, you have to gauge. It's a time and money thing. When I started, I didn't have any money and I didn't want to spend money on leads. You had to buy leads up front that didn't finance them. So
Okay.
I knocked on doors and I did events. I did everything I could. But then you get to a point where I started making more money And I'm like, do I want to waste a whole day on a Sunday generating leads so I can work this week,
Mhm.
or am I going to spend 300 or 400 bucks and just buy some? And then that's when my production really increased, is when I decided to just increase my lead volume.
Yeah, trade time for money, path of least resistance. Absolutely. I totally agree. Okay, so let's transition now to why should someone consider the Golden Memorial Lincoln Heritage opportunity versus being a broker, or versus maybe other competitors that have a single carrier model? What makes us so great?
Well, I would say the first thing, no matter which IMO you sign up for or what carriers you use, the most important thing is your direct manager, your management team, right? This is the person that you're going to be working with on day-to-day basis, and they are the person that has a vested interest in you selling policies, right? I think it's important, and the difference between most of our managers here and our IMO is that you have that direct support, right? If when I started, when I came back right after trying to be a broker for a little bit,
Yeah.
Adam had started while I was gone, and he became a really successful agent. He became a manager, and then I had started with Adam. Well, Adam's a great salesperson. If I was in a house and somebody asked me a question that I couldn't answer, I could call him up. I could just call up Adam right there on the phone and put him on speakerphone, and he would answer the question. And if I couldn't close the deal, he would close it for me. So it's important, the management team that you have, the support that you have. If you have somebody available, I mean, some of the IMOs that are brokers, they have like agent hotlines, right? Where some of the VPs will get on and they'll help answer questions when you're in a house, or when you're on the phone and you can't close a deal, or you get asked something about a product that you don't know. Um, and that's a little bit different than having the same person that you can go to. Like I worked with Adam, right? I sat in a house with him. I watched him sell policies, and I knew that I could count on him. I knew that he was going to answer his phone. I know that whatever he was going to tell my client would help me convert it into a sale.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to make money. Your direct manager gets paid based on what you get paid, right? So they
Sure.
have a financial invested interest in you close. They want you to close that deal as much as you want to close that deal. So I think that's a big part of it. Some of these IMOs that have top level contracts, you're not going to get as much support. Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say necessarily the top level contracts. I would say that if you're a veteran agent and maybe you didn't think you needed the support that you need, then maybe you could take a contract and they're going to put in the least amount of effort because they're getting a smaller spread on you, and they have a less vested interest in you closing deals, right?
Mhm.
Especially if they're bigger, if they have 700 agents, they're not too worried about one guy selling a deal or not if they close it. So I
Okay.
think that the big part, like the first thing that you need to look for as a new agent, right? When you want to get in the business, they don't really think you're not going to get solicited by carriers, right? You might see an ad from a carrier every now and then, but majority of it are IMOs, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as soon as you get your insurance license, every IMO wants you to come work for them, right? They can never have enough agents. They want as many agents as they possibly can. They want to make as much money as they possibly can. So they're going to do everything that they can to try to get you to come to their team. So there's no shortage of IMOs. What you have to decide is what the IMO can do for you to help you increase the amount of sales that you make. Okay. So with with working with Lincoln Heritage and working with one carrier for me was different than working with 8 or 10 carriers. I got appointed to 10 carriers, right? And here's the first thing that I noticed. The first thing that I noticed is that they have this street level contract, and they're like, "Hey, we'll give you 110%." I'm like, "Damn, that's awesome. That's 30% higher than what I'm getting right now." So I'm like, "Cool, sign me up." Well, when they send me their contract, there's like a dozen carriers that they use, right?
Okay.
One out of the dozen carriers has that 110% contract that they told me. And that carrier had 13 different products. And it was only one product that I would get that 110% contract on. The rest of the business was cut. I mean, I would get, sometimes it'd be a 60, a 50, some even 10%, depending on the product. And some of them didn't, that contract that had the highest renewals, because they told me, like, yeah, you're going to get 100% contract and you get 10% renewals.
Hmm.
And then so when I look, I can get 110% commissions on this one deal, but it had no renewals. And then I could get this other with this other company. There's this one company that probably paid me at a 60%, but I got 10% renewals on that one. So it wasn't like when they tell you that, hey, you're going to start on 100%, 100% contract or whatever it is, their street level contract, and they work with 12 different companies, you're not going to get 110% contract or 100% contract on all the business that you write. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen, right? So I do this all the time with people. I mean, I've been in the business so long. I have a close friend that's a broker, and we sat down one weekend over a case of beers, and we went through the last 100 applications that we wrote and averaged out our commissions. And me being on a lower contract, on an 80% contract, and him being on his highest contract was 120%. I got more in renewals and more in commissions on an average over the last 100 policies that we wrote than he did.
Really?
Yeah.
And he still stayed where he stayed? Where he
Yeah,
said,
well, it doesn't even, it goes farther than that too. Because remember, the whole thing about everything is a quality of life, right? I mean, I figure based on average life expectancy that I'm halfway through, right? I want to spend more time doing what I like to do, right? Which is spend time with my family and sell policies. When I signed up, when I was a broker, each of these 10 carriers had multiple products, 12 products, right? So instead of having to be a specialist in 3 products, I needed to know 30 or 40 products, right? And that changes your sales process too. So when you go to the house and you have this big lineup, and let's say that this one company has really good rates if you have diabetes. This one company has really good rates if you're a smoker. This other company has really good rates if you've had a heart attack within 2 years. This other one, if they've had a heart attack within 3 years, you should do this company. So
yeah,
you don't know what you're going to sell when you knock on their door or when you're running a lead,
yeah,
right? So that changes your sales process. Every single house that I knock on, every single client that I talk to, I know exactly who I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell Lincoln Heritage. That's it. I'm not going to sell anybody. I know it streamlines my sales process already. It's the same in every single house. If you don't know what product they qualify for, I mean, it has to do with their height and weight too. Like maybe you don't even know. You go and you knock on the door and the guy's 500 pounds, and you're like, God, let me see.
yeah. We don't even
But
ask
what?
about height and weight. What would you
Yeah.
say to the brokers specifically that say, yeah, but Lincoln Heritage is so much more expensive. They're so overpriced. And, you're not doing, just so you're doing yourself, favors by streamlining it, but how are you really helping your clients? What do you say to that?
Um, I hear it a lot, and I'm a firm believer in life insurance, right? I really believe in the product. I believe that every person in the entire world should have life insurance. It benefits immensely. It's non-taxable when you pass away. It really helps the family in the worst time in their life. I think that if you walk into a house and they don't have insurance and I walk out and they do have insurance, they're in a better position than when I left them, straight up. I feel good about it. Every time I write a policy, even if they already have a policy, if I go in there and they get more coverage, they're in a better position than they were when I left.
Yes.
So already it's at a moral standpoint, then I'm 100% fine. And I hear a lot too that this is my same buddy that's been doing it for 30 years as a broker. He says that he sells on price 100%, and he says every company is the same. Like, what's the difference? Is $10,000 with Lincoln Heritage is the same as $10,000 with Americo, right? Or any other company, Transamerica, whatever, right? Mutual of
Yeah.
Omaha, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, if you've been a life insurance agent for as long as me, and you have rapport with your agents and referrals and generational policies like I do, the worst thing that can happen is I get a call from a client and somebody passes away, right? I helped a policy get paid with Americo the other day. My client had a policy with us, and they had a policy with Americo, right? So my Lincoln policy was $10 more expensive for the same amount that Americo had. Well, we called to file claims, right? I called Lincoln Heritage, and it took about 3 or 4 minutes, and within 20 minutes, they had the money deposited in their account. That Americo policy
Wait, wait,
took
wait, wait,
me.
wait. Hold on, pause. What you just said is actually crazy. So you didn't even use the FCGS for this? You as the
No,
agent just
I,
authorized.
I call the claims department. I call the FCGS after. So when one of my clients passes away, I call into Lincoln. If they're past the contestability period, which both of his
Yeah,
policies were past the contestability
right, right,
period,
right,
then we don't require a death certificate to be able to
right.
pay out.
Okay,
So
so you called and within 20 minutes, wait, to do the claim was all of 3 minutes. How long did you
yeah,
wait on hold? This is my best part. How long do you wait on hold when you call Lincoln?
yeah, I didn't. No, they answered like pretty
You
much right
don't.
away.
You don't ever wait on hold for longer than a couple
Yeah.
minutes, if at most. Okay, so it took you about 3 minutes to file the claim. You call the FCGS, they do and then within 20 minutes, the money was in their account, just wire transferred.
Right. Yeah. And then so after I talked to Lincoln, then I talked to the Funeral Consumer Garden Society, and they're the ones that help with all the funeral planning, and they're really, really good at what they do.
Yes.
So I talked to Lincoln with the person on speakerphone so they could hear, and then Lincoln gives their condolences and said, "We'll send the deposit. Is this and this the account number that we're using?" And they're like, "Yep, you can put it in there." And then they wired the money. And then I call the FCGS and say, "Hey, we just, so and so passed away and we need to activate their plan. I have their daughter on the phone, so and so, and she's needs help making all the arrangements." And then I pass them along. "Okay, well, I'm so sorry for your loss. As soon as you're done with the FCGS, give me a call. If there's anything else that you need me to do."
Okay, so then what
And then,
happened when you called America?
well, after waiting on hold for 45 minutes and getting a call back, right? Well, I guess, okay, it was 16 minutes until somebody answered the phone, and then they said that they couldn't give any information to a third party, right? They were just like, "We can't." I'm like, "Well, they're here, they're authorizing it. I'm just a friend. I'm trying to help them file a claim." And they wouldn't give me any information, so I had to have the client call back on her own, and they said that it would be 3 to 6 weeks, and that of course, they needed a death certificate too.
Sure. Sure.
So we needed a death certificate, and then that took probably 2 or 3 weeks, and then they paid the claim probably 6 weeks after that. So we're looking at maybe 3 months that it took to get a
Wow.
claim. Now it's not all carriers, so I mean, I'm not going to say that it's all. Maybe it was just that day, maybe. I mean, I had a client with Old American the other day, and they still needed to get their death certificate, but they paid it out like 2 days after they got the death certificate. They paid out the claim,
Yeah. Yeah.
so they had to wait maybe like 3 or 4 weeks to get the claim. American Amicable wasn't too bad. Like I've had American Amicable pay a claim an hour after, right? So but what I'm saying is that not all these carriers are the same. $10,000 with one company is not the same as $10,000 with another company. And how valuable is that $5 or $10 a month, right?
Yes.
As an agent, when you have to sit on the phone with a crying beneficiary, and so I mean, these are people that you talk to, right? For you, let's just say you called them on the phone and you're like, "No, this is good. This is the best thing for you. It's cheap. It's a great company." And then 2 years later, you get a phone call, and then you're with them on speakerphone. You call the company with them, and they're like, "We can't do anything. We can't even talk to you. We need to talk to the client." And then it's 3 to 6 weeks before they get the money, and you told them that it was for their funeral. How are you gonna have a funeral 6 weeks after they had the time of death?
I
So the
know.
companies are not built the same. I mean, and not even as an agent. I mean, working with some of these companies just as an agent, submitting business is difficult. It's difficult to get them on the phone. Some of them are closed on Fridays. You can't even call them on a Friday; it'll be closed.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that and not to mention, remember all these companies, they add and pull products too often. So you have these 30 products that you want to try to be familiar with if you could be, but then every year one gets taken out and one gets changed, or the commissions get changed, or they get lowered, or sometimes they pull out of the business altogether and then you're done. They close down. Like there's been
Yeah.
companies this year that have closed down. They completely pulled out of the final expense business, and now they're going direct to consumer. I
Right.
mean, that stuff happens all the time.
Right.
So it's do you want to deal with all that stuff? Do
Um,
you just think of yourself working on a day-to-day basis, right? When they have their training, the reason why our agents write most of the time is significantly more amount of business than a broker will is because of the time in their training. When you have training calls, you can look at your videos. You're like, these are how you get past these three objections. This
mhm.
is how this is my sales process. When you go to these carriers trainings and their webinars, their whole entire training is like, okay, if you're in a house and this person weighs 200 pounds and they have a heart issue, we're going to issue them with American Amicable. If they have diabetes, then and they've had a complication, then you should go with this company. If they have diabetes and a heart issue, then you need to go with this company. So their whole entire training process is just telling you how to place people, right? They don't
Product
actually
knowledge.
do,
That's what I
yeah,
call
they
it.
don't,
Product
yeah,
knowledge over prospect knowledge.
right. They don't even explain to you how to be a strong salesperson. And you can really go through the objections when you have the same product that you're offering in every single house. you're going to hear the same objections, and they're just going to be the down to earth, real easy objections like, I don't have money. I need to talk to my kids. You know, like the normal objections that you get, and you hear them so much that you become you already know the objections you're going to get. Eventually you get to the point like Howard, right? Like our number one agents.
Yeah.
They get to a point where they know the objections they're going to get, and they squash them in their presentations before they even get asked. So
Yeah.
that's why
Course.
when you go out with a great agent, and or you listen to a call, like in your instance of someone doing, and the new agent will hear it and be like, wow, that was the easiest thing ever. You were on the phone for 35 minutes and you made
Right.
$200. This is great. You know, but they don't realize that the person, you know, is an extremely good salesperson, specifically at selling this product because they know everything about it.
What do you do when you go to the door and you show them the direct mail card that they filled out and they literally look at the card and look back at you and say, I didn't write that?
Oh yeah, well, it happens all the time.
I know, but
Yeah.
what do you do? Because because we get the I didn't do that objection over the phone, but yours is even worse because you're literally showing them their own handwriting and they're still denying it. So how do you what do you guys say to overcome that?
Well, ask them if they have anything. Do you have a policy, or do you have anything set aside to take care of your funeral? You
I
know,
love
something.
it. You know why I love that so much, what you just said? That was genius, by the way, because you didn't like do the holding that person accountable to their handwriting on their inquiry and like getting into the minutia of that. Well, you just said that's, you know, that's not a problem. Do you have something? Like you just went away from it and went into something else, which is exactly how I would train my agents to handle that. And I love that you just said that.
And more than that too. I mean, even after that, it gets harder. I mean, sometimes it's really hard, and then I just talk to him. You know, there's this one time where a guy was like that at the door, and then I told him, and he's like, "Well, no, but I'm not going to take care of this and this." And then he had a couple quads in his driveway. I'm like, "Dang, was that a Yamaha?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." And then we went out there and we started talking about his quads, and I started talking about his truck, and then he had this tree with gigantic lemons on it. Like, what the? Oh my god! Like, how the heck did you do that? How do you get lemons that big on your tree? And then I ended up spending 30 minutes just talking to him about his yard. And then finally he's like, you know what, just come in and give me the information, you know? And then I sat down and I ended up doing a presentation and selling it.
Amazing. I love
So
that.
yeah, when I have agents that struggle sometimes a lot, and like a veteran agent, this happens to the veteran guys way too much, right? They just go straight in for the kill. They only want to do a presentation. They want to make a quick sale. And I'll tell them, I'll go out and work with them and seeing them do one or two presentations. I know, and be like, look, this next house that we go into, I want you to talk about anything but insurance. I want you to talk about anything but the reason why you're there for 10 minutes before you even mention the product. I want the client to look at you and be like, why are you here again?
Yeah.
That's what and then it completely changes their sales.
Yeah. So you're just like pattern interrupting them by not focusing on the reason that they don't want you to be at their door.
If they send a lead back or someone sent a lead back, there is a need. There was something that it takes a lot to send a lead back, right? I mean, especially a direct mail lead. These people actually see a flyer, they rip out the bottom, they fill it out, they stick it into an envelope or on their mailbox and have the mailman pick it up. They went through a lot of work to get that lead to you. So there had to have been a thought in their head at one point
Yeah.
that they wanted and that they needed this. And that's what you have to break down their barriers. Sometimes people just don't want to be bothered. Who knows
Yeah.
what they're doing? Maybe they're watching a show or something. They're like, "Shit, is this calling me?" Or "Who's this knocking on my door?" Like, what are you doing? Why didn't you call first? I hear that the most.
And you call first. Yeah. And we're like, because then you wouldn't show up.
I did. I called. It'd be like, matter of fact, I called you 12 times and I haven't been able to get you on the phone. So I had to come all the way out here because the company asked me to give you this information. It's my job to give it to you.
Yes.
Like, I can come back tomorrow, but we're here.
That's good. All right. Well, this conversation went fast and we're almost an hour in. So let's give some last kind of words of wisdom or advice from anyone that's considering field sales with one carrier, telesales with one carrier, or being a broker. Like what any last words that you'd like to leave with any agents who are still confused?
Yes, I would say that the most important thing, besides what the product, besides the commissions, besides whether it's field sales or telesales, is that you find somebody that is successful, that can show you hands-on how to do it and is there to support you 100%. That's more important than anything else that's out there. You need somebody to be vested in your success. That's the most important thing. especially your direct manager and your IMO. Those are the people that you're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis, and that's the most important thing. And to have fun, and you have to enjoy it, right? Nobody wants to do something that they don't enjoy. So go out and try it. And if you like it, I mean, I'm not going to say that everybody's going to like their job, right? But it really makes life a lot easier when you enjoy what you're doing and you're having fun while you're doing it.
And how could someone reach out to you, Nate, if they want to get in your car and do a ride along and see what this whole thing is about?
They can look me up on the Gold Memorial website. It has my information there. They can call Gold Memorial. You can Google Gold Memorial Insurance Services or Nathan Berrigan and Associates. My website's on there with my phone number. And then I give my cell phone number out right here, 209-620-2432. My office is 559-201-9528. Call me anytime. I have plenty of time.
Love it. Thank you, Nate, so much for being here.
All right, Dana. It was nice talking to you.